A mother's worst nightmare, a father's deepest sorrow, a sister's unfulfilled promise. Harshita Brella was just 24 years old. She had dreams, hopes, and a whole life ahead of her. But in a horrifying act of cruelty, her life was cut short. Her body found in the trunk of a car, far from home, far from the family that loved her beyond words. This is not just another crime story. This is the story of a daughter who cried for help, a sister who suffered in silence, a woman who warned her family that she would be killed, and yet the system failed her. She was trapped in a marriage that turned into a nightmare, controlled, beaten, and isolated. She lost a baby she never got to hold. She was forced to live in fear. And then, her worst fear became reality. The most haunting part, she saw it coming. She told her family, "He will kill me." And he did. This is the devastating case of Harshita Brella, a story that must be told, not just to remember her, but to demand justice for her. The dark path to tragedy. Harshita was a young woman with dreams. Like many others, she entered into an arranged marriage, believing in the promise of a new beginning. She legally wed Pankaj Lamba in August 2023. Their traditional Indian ceremony followed in March, and by April, she had moved to the UK to start a new life with her husband. But it wasn't long before the fairy tale turned into a horror story. Her husband was not the loving partner she had hoped for. Instead, he became her tormentor. He controlled her every move, who she could talk to, what she could spend, even when she could call her own family. Her sister, Sonia Dabas, recalls how Pankaj would manipulate and isolate her. He told her not to speak to me. She could only call us when he wasn't around. Harshita had no financial freedom. Every penny she earned was taken by her husband. She couldn't even buy a piece of chocolate for herself. She was trapped. Then the abuse escalated. One day she called her father, sobbing uncontrollably. "He beat me really badly," she cried. "He even beat me in the street." Her father, Harshita Brella, was heartbroken. But he had no idea that this was just the beginning of the horrors his daughter would endure. The last cry for help. In September, Pankaj Lamba was arrested after assaulting Harshita. But his punishment? A domestic violence protection order. A mere 28-day restriction preventing him from harassing her. For a brief moment, Harshita felt safer. She was identified as a high-risk domestic abuse victim and placed in a refuge. But then tragedy struck again. While in the refuge, she fell ill. She was taken to the hospital, where doctors gave her life-changing news. She was pregnant. A baby. A new hope. A reason to fight. But within days, that hope was shattered. She lost the baby. No words could describe her pain. And just weeks later, she would lose her life. The murder that should never have happened. On November 10, police believe Harshita was fatally strangled in Corby, Northamptonshire. Her lifeless body was placed in the trunk of a car. For 4 days, she remained there, hidden, forgotten. It wasn't until November 14 that her body was discovered in Ilford, East London. Her family's worst fears had come true. Her father, clutching a framed photo of his daughter, wept. "I used to say to her, 'When I die, I want you to perform my final rites.' I had no idea I would have to do hers." A mother, shattered beyond words, remembered her daughter's last goodbye. She was crying a lot at the airport when she left for the UK, she recalled. "I didn't know she was saying goodbye to me for the last time. They had tried to warn the world. They had tried to save her. But it wasn't enough." Where is the killer? The main suspect? Her own husband, Pankaj Lamba. But where is he? Harshita's family believes he fled to India. But despite their pleas, Indian authorities have said they cannot act without a request from the UK. Meanwhile, the UK police claim their investigation is moving at pace. But the question remains, will justice be served? A system that failed her. Harshita did everything she could. She called for help. She reported the abuse. She was placed in a refuge. Yet, somehow, she still ended up dead. The legal system, the police, the protections in place, they all failed her. Her domestic violence protection order expired on October 1, but she and her family mistakenly believed it lasted until November 24. How does such a tragic misunderstanding happen? How does a woman, identified as high risk, end up strangled in a car trunk? How does a man, already arrested for domestic violence, get the chance to flee? Harshita's family is left with grief, questions, and one desperate plea: justice. A final goodbye. On December 3, Harshita's body was finally brought back home to India. Her funeral was attended by dozens of mourners outside the Brella family home. She should have been there, alive, happy, safe. Instead, she was gone. Her father, mother, and sister sat in silence, staring at the framed photo of the girl who had once been full of life. A girl who had laughed, dreamed, and believed in love. A girl who had been betrayed, beaten, and silenced. But her story will not be forgotten. Her name will not be erased. A call for justice. Harshita Brella's murder is not just one family's tragedy. It is a wake-up call. A call for stronger protections for domestic abuse victims. A call for justice for women who cry out for help and are ignored. A call to stop excusing abusers and start protecting victims. We cannot bring Harshita back, but we can fight for her. We can demand justice. And we can make sure that no more daughters, sisters, and mothers suffer the same fate. A message for you. If you or someone you know is facing domestic abuse, please seek help. Do not stay silent. Do not wait for things to get better. Because sometimes, waiting means never getting the chance to escape. Harshita's story must not be just another news report. It must be a turning point. So share this story. Keep her memory alive and never stop fighting for justice.